welcome back to the third episode of the AFF podcast. I'm your host, Rory Sloan, and I'm here with a very special woman in my life. Today we have my mum with me, who hopefully the podcast we're going to go on and talk about sort of what it was like as a parent's point of view, going through my journey, and also what it was like from a parent's point of view in her journey as well. We'd like to welcome my mum to the AFF podcast. Would you like to tell everyone a bit more about yourself and what you're up to at the minute?
Well, I'm Rory's mum. I have 3 boys. Rory's my eldest child. I would have been working when I had Rory and continued to do so when I had my second son, Toby. My third child came along, which was even more chaotic than 2. And I, at that point, gave up work and had 9 years looking after my 3 boys, which was a delight. Not having to be in work every day and getting that opportunity to spend time with them. I found it was crucial years of their lives. They were all relatively young at the time. Would have been from the ages of, what age were you, Rory? Let me think. Cody was just born, so Toby was 3 and you'd have been 6.
Yeah.
So extremely young at the time, and I was very lucky then to spend the next 9 years with you guys, really right up then until you were going into your secondary school. Mm-hmm. Presently I'm back into work, been working for the last 6-7 years. Presently I work for an EEC safeguarding group as a business manager. So ironically we work to keep children safe online, educate and empowering people. To hopefully prevent children coming into harm on social media and in everyday life as they grow up.
Very good. And so basically we're just going to strip it right back to before the incident of me getting caught with drugs, as I would have talked about in other episodes. So what was, as a parent's point of view as well, like what was it like seeing me grow up through the late teenager stages, and was there any noticeable differences, or did you really not have a clue when it came to that kind of situation? Or like just from looking back on it now, do you maybe see things that maybe other parents couldn't look out for, I suppose is what I'm asking?
At the time, had no clue at all. I don't think any parent has a clue when they have a child. You don't get a proper manual. You obviously get about every disease your child can get and all the injections you've got to have. But as in this type of stuff, there's no guidance, and you just have to do your best. And I'd say that to any parent. You can only do your best. When your child goes out into the big wide world, you can't actually have any effect on the influence they're going to get out there. You just have to hope you've given them the advice and all the information you can for them to make the right decisions. Which isn't easy, as we all know. We've all been teenagers and grown up. I know that's scary for you to think of as me running around, but equally so I had a very sheltered, I suppose, looking back now, childhood. There wasn't social media like you guys have now. I am delighted that I am not growing up in this day and age, I have to say. Biggest changes as in a parent is when your child starts to go out more. So when you went into first, second, third year, probably turning to the age of maybe 15, 16, starting to go out more with your friends, stay out later. Then as you got a bit older, starting going to clubs. Personally, as a parent, I was glad you had that independence. I didn't pick you up. Maybe I should have done, maybe looking back. But I was never picked up. I always got the last bus home or got a taxi. And, you know, I ran the same, and your daddy as well. We ran the same with our kids. You know, we wanted you to be independent boys. And so leaving you the £20 on the bottom stair to make sure you could pay for your taxi at night, you know, obviously tracking you through your mobile phone, but not really having a clue what club you're at, just knowing that you're in Belfast. Quite often not hearing you come in, to be fair, Rory. You know what I'm like, I'm a great sleeper. But would have probably maybe stirred around at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, checked the phone to check you're in your bed. And, you know, 9 times out of 10 you were, so I was happy. Didn't dwell on much what you were doing when you're out. Presumed you were partying, dancing. We're all great dancers in the family, as you know. Having a few drinks and enjoying life. Never on this planet did I think that you had started taking drugs and that it led to where you were today. It wouldn't be something that I would recognise signs of. Now, obviously, through what's happened in the last number of years, you know, I've become aware of things that I maybe could have noticed. But it was something I've never done myself, nothing I've ever even been around or, you know, affected by. with either myself or friends. So no, the hands up, I had no clue. And at that time, it didn't even occur to me.
Yeah, so then, what was it then, the feelings of like hearing that? Because obviously I was in prison, I wasn't there for the initial, I got caught, I understood it was like, but there was non-communicado, so I was missing for essentially a few days. Like, what was the feeling when, sorry, what was like, what was the feeling when you initially found out that this is what happened and that you can't get, and I didn't want to contact you at that moment in time?
I think the build up to it happened on the Sunday. I was in the house on my own. Looking back now, I had concerns about you for the 2 weeks previous to that.
Yeah.
You disappeared off radar 2 weeks before. I later found out you'd gone to Newcastle.
Yeah.
I had spent the day with you in town and felt that you were distracted, and I couldn't quite place my finger on why. And then at my birthday dinner, you left early, which is completely out of character. Yeah. So with those sort of warnings, when on the, I can't even remember what day you would have been arrested, whether it was a Friday or the Saturday.
Yeah.
But I had started looking on my phone and trying to work out why you were and why you weren't answering your phone. At that time, I didn't realise that WhatsApp would ring out regardless of whether your phone was on, what it rang.
Yeah.
And so I was ringing and couldn't place you through, to be fair, all the Saturday.
Yeah, and then obviously at that moment in time, all emotions are going through your head, like whether I'm dead, whether I'm alive,
Yeah, well, I hadn't hit that point yet. I was just thinking, what's going on?
Yeah.
I hadn't even registered that it was something major at that point. Mm-hmm. So when I lifted up the phone and it was the solicitor, and his first words for me, I don't normally do this.
Yeah.
But your son was so open, I just felt that I needed to ring you.
Yeah.
And then he told me, and there is nothing that I can explain. It was complete shock.
Yeah.
It was complete shock. And the realisation at that time that you hadn't rang me hadn't even dawned on me. I was glad that he had rang me, and I was then aware and could start trying to get things moving. Obviously rang your dad immediately. He came home. We got really frustrated because we couldn't do anything. We couldn't ring, we couldn't contact. We only had the means through the solicitor until the opportunity came to go and get you bail.
Yeah.
We couldn't speak to you when you were in prison. And you know what I'm like. I rang everybody and anybody what was possible to ring. And it's not easy when you actually then got bail but went straight to prison.
Yeah.
I sat for an entire day, which I don't even know if you realised, on the telephone, ringing that prison, trying to get hold of somebody who would speak to me, somebody who would get me an appointment.
Yeah.
I can't even remember the number of phone calls and how many times I was put on hold. It was a lot of times. And then eventually we managed to get FaceTime with you. And it was then when it dawned on me, or you might have said that you thought we would not have come if you'd rang, we would have disowned you.
Yeah.
And that, to be fair, that one phrase broke my heart.
Yeah.
That was harder to hear that, you saying that, than it was hearing that you've been arrested.
Yeah. So obviously, that's quite a big... Yeah, obviously, I understand now, for me, as a point of view, it was such a big thing, and, there was quite a... we always got shouted at for, like, smoking cigarettes or whatever, whenever we got caught when we were younger. So me taking it that step further to being in prison with these drugs, obviously... That's at the time. That's how I looked at it. I was like, if that's my punishment for getting caught with cigarettes, getting caught with this, it was hard for me to digest, especially in the frame of mind that I was in.
Yeah.
I'd already distanced myself. Never mind ringing. I think me in that cell at the time, it was just I couldn't risk taking the
one phone call.
I couldn't risk you maybe saying go do it yourself. That kind of thing, because it obviously I was broken at that time. But yeah, so after that obviously I got out and we started building back our bond, I suppose, is again, like our relationship I ended up being completely honest to a certain extent, apart from the drug taking that I was still doing up until recently. But what was that like, sort of for you having to watch me go through, because obviously, well, you haven't dealt with mental health really. It wasn't, you know, as such a extreme example as what I was. What was it like having a son going through, and like, you lived with me where I was bailed at the time? So
Absolutely.
You
We
noticed,
moved in.
you moved in, so you noticed. You
I-
seen firsthand, you know, the breakdowns, the stuff. What was that like, considering I'd kind of been hiding it with drugs and essentially away from you? You know, obviously I had episodes that you didn't even know about until other people had told you about. What was it like actually experiencing that after?
My priority at first was to make you realise that your family was there for you and talk about family and let you know that everybody was caring, everybody wanted you to help.
Yeah.
Whether they were your nanny and grandpa over in England, your nana who was letting us live with her at the time, and obviously me and your dad, we would be there for you 100%. Watching you and with you, I mean, I've seen some awful things, obviously, and situations with work, and we've covered grooming and all different aspects, but listening to other people talk about it and actually then living through one of those experiences is completely different, and especially when it's your own child. Certain things I went on automatic. I felt I was on suicide watch. I felt that I couldn't leave you at any point of the day. I felt that, you know, we needed to have that connection, which we did because we were under one roof, and that was really important to me because I was unsettled and couldn't sit at ease or be at peace if I didn't know you were okay. So when you recalled when you went out for walks in the evening and you had to be back at 9:30, we'd be watching that driveway, watching you come back, because obviously we needed to give you your space.
Yeah.
But equally, if I could have done, I would have wrapped you in cotton wool and put you in my room and not let you out of my sight.
Yeah.
But that's not the solution. It's never the solution. No matter what I did at the time, all I could do was support you. You had to work it out yourself.
Yeah.
And I knew in my heart of hearts, if you couldn't do that, you know, that I couldn't make that difference. You had to do those first steps. I just had to do the hair.
So how did, then going on from that, how did you feel about, obviously we tried to get in with many therapists at the time, but getting in with Tim essentially at the start and then pushing with alternatives and getting into Emmett, was that when you kind of seen the main, like, Rory that we know is sort of coming back around, or?
To be fair, we did. You're right. We rang everybody. We tried everything, whether it was online, through healthcare. We went through GPs, and what we knew, and we're very similar that way, is we don't like virtual.
Yeah.
We don't like cameras. We like to be face to face. And when I don't know, when you were in prison, I was speaking to a girl, and she was there to support families whose children were in prison. And she was unbelievable. Even after you came out on bail, she would have rang me every day. And she's the one that said to me, I have this group, Alternatives, does Rory want to be referred? And at the time I asked you, and your immediate reaction without any hesitation was yes. And that led you to meet them, and eventually to meet Emmett.
Yeah.
Emmett, I thank him a million times, because what I was always scared of is not being able to say the right thing to you when you rang me up in the middle of the night, when you were having your anxiety checks. As you said, I'm not, that isn't my strength, that's not what I do. So I was doing my utmost best to help you, but I knew you needed somebody who was trained, who knew what they were doing. And you also needed that person to be somebody you could connect with.
Yeah.
And I can remember after, I think it was your second appointment with Emmett, you came home and you went, Mummy, my anxiety's gone down from 10 to 3. And that was a really big moment for me, because that was what I needed to hear. Yeah.
No, yeah, so obviously we're going to try and get on to the better bit now. Where we've moved on, kind of, obviously at the whole as well, which we should probably touch on, is the court case is obviously still going on at the moment we're recording this, which is 2 years later. What sort of, obviously, what is the, like, as a parent, having the court, like, having to go back and always getting set back, like, it's obviously annoying, but do you think that it's just something you just have to deal with, or is it something that's like a struggle for you?
Going into court isn't pleasant at all, as you know yourself. It's quite surreal, really. You go there and you stand and you're trying to absorb the information and take out the bits
that are important.
They're important because they're not very straightforward in their language. The fact it's gone on and on, I think, has actually, in some ways, been good. It's given you time to progress. I mean, whatever anyone looks at this journey, it's not a short journey.
Yeah.
You know, had the court case finished after 6 months, would that have been a help to you? I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
No, neither do I, to be honest. I think now the court case is a very personal thing between the family.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't want other people who haven't put the commitment into, you know, getting back on the right track and taking that right path to use you
as an example.
Yeah, and not go to prison.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Rory, if you hadn't taken the right path and done everything to do, and I couldn't help you or see you make an amend, I would have left you in prison. But not because I don't love you, because I couldn't help you, and if that was the way to get you help, I would have done that.
Which I suppose is understandable.
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been because I was disowning you or not wanting to help you. It would be because I couldn't physically do anything else and would feel that you were in more harm out in society.
Well, I think luckily for both of us that wasn't the case.
Thank goodness.
And obviously, I pat myself on the back, do work very hard in building the relationship back up with myself and also with yous and with as a family. What's it like sort of seeing me actually come out the other side? That's very rare in these kind of situations, but not impossible. What's it like kind of saying, you know, could you, for example, like referring back to the in other episodes, The One Young World, like could you have imagined me a year ago sitting doing something like that?
Absolutely
or something like
not.
this?
I mean, the fact, you know, the summit was incredible. The fact you got the opportunity when you filled in that form, I have to admit, Rory, I was going, you've no chance. And apologies for that, because you did it and you went and you've actually progressed it and made, you know, connections through that and are going to continue working with them, which is amazing. I think the biggest thing is no matter what's been thrown at you since you've left, whether it be, you know, getting help or helping other people now, you've always said yes. You've never turned anything down. Which is what's been consistent from the very beginning, from the day you were arrested to now.
Yeah.
Whenever I have offered you help or anyone else has offered you help, your answer has always been yes. You've never turned your back, which is why I think you have done so well. You know, it's a huge achievement, and with all the help, and people have been absolutely amazing, it wouldn't have happened unless you had wanted it to. And I think you have to realise that. I think you have to give yourself that credit.
So just to finish off, would there be any key tips that maybe, not necessarily if a parent's kids have been arrested, because obviously that's the extreme, but there might be parents out there that are starting to notice their kids maybe acting the way, you know, or kids maybe, I speak to youth groups and some kids do speak to their parents and say, you know, is there any tips now that you've had a son that, obviously I'm now 8 months sober, that have gone through the addiction and maybe the addiction side? Is there any tips that maybe you could give to a parent on how to cope with?
I would just say to them, you can't do it on your own.
Yeah.
Take all the support you can get. Ring up. Don't be afraid to ring up. Don't be afraid to ask. You know, it's not a failure as being a parent because your child has become addicted to drugs. You know, a parent's job is to be there for their child no matter what. Yeah. You know, whether they're at the summit or whether they're sitting in a prison, and that's what you'll realise one day. You know, it is what parenting is, and we don't do things right all the time. Yeah. You know, we don't say things that are, you know, there's absolutely no manual. And you know what I'm like? It doesn't matter what you do. If you don't say please and thank you, you're probably going to get bashed as well. You know, it's those little things that matter. And, you know, through all of this, things that I've noticed is like you coming over to see your nanny and grandpa with me, you know, ringing me up to say, because obviously going into surgery, I mightn't make your last court case, that doesn't matter. That's huge to me. You wouldn't have done that before. Yeah. You know, that's it's you thinking of other people. Buying my friend who's in hospital, donating to charity, so you got a Minnie Mouse because she knows she loves Disney. But those things are the things that I remember. Those things are the things that I see as progression in you getting better and becoming the Rory that we love.
Well, I know that was uncomfortable for you to
I actually quite enjoyed it now.
But thanks so much for coming on. Maybe we get you on again in the future. So yeah, thanks everyone for listening. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And I look forward to speaking to you.